ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone you care about has become distant or is actively ignoring you? It's a painful experience, one that often leaves us feeling confused, rejected, and uncertain. But in moments like these, there lies an incredible opportunity for growth, reflection, and a deeper understanding of both ourselves and others. Today, I want to share with you some thoughts on how to navigate these difficult moments. If someone is pulling away, it's natural to feel hurt, but I believe there is a way to approach the situation with both grace and courage. And it starts with understanding one powerful truth: what they are doing has more to do with them than it does with you. When someone pulls away from us, it's easy to feel rejected, confused, or even angry. We start to question ourselves: did I do something wrong? Am I not worthy of their attention or affection? These feelings can trigger self-doubt, causing us to either withdraw in defense or respond with frustration. But there's a deeper, more powerful perspective that can change how we approach these moments: vulnerability. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, a place where we might get hurt or exposed. But in reality, it is a powerful tool for connection and growth. When someone is distant or ignoring us, the natural response is to pull back, to shield ourselves from the discomfort. We might think that by closing ourselves off, we can protect our hearts and maintain some sense of control over the situation. But this withdrawal only perpetuates the emotional distance. Vulnerability, on the other hand, offers us a different path. Instead of immediately reacting or pulling away, embracing vulnerability means giving ourselves permission to stay open, even when we feel hurt or unsure. It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that we can't control other people's actions, but we can control how we respond. And in responding with vulnerability, we allow ourselves to explore the deeper reasons behind the other person's behavior without judgment. Often their distance has more to do with their internal struggles than with anything you've done. They may be dealing with personal issues, stress, fear, insecurity, or even trauma that are causing them to retreat. When we react defensively, we miss the opportunity to understand what's truly happening beneath the surface. Vulnerability doesn't mean exposing yourself to unnecessary hurt or accepting behavior that is harmful. It's not about staying in relationships where we're constantly ignored or mistreated. Rather, vulnerability means having the courage to stay engaged, to hold space for the other person's emotions, and to create an environment where open communication can flourish. It's the ability to say, I see that you're pulling away, and while I don't know exactly why, I'm willing to understand. By choosing vulnerability, we are also choosing empathy. Instead of interpreting someone's distance as a direct attack on our worth, we can ask ourselves, what might they be going through? This shift in mindset doesn't mean we have to be passive or accept neglect. It's simply about resisting the temptation to take everything personally. Vulnerability gives us the space to check our assumptions, to acknowledge our emotions, and to approach the situation with kindness toward both the other person and ourselves. Whether personal or professional, we are all navigating our own complex inner worlds. People's behavior is often a reflection of their own struggles, fears, or unresolved conflicts. When we open ourselves up to vulnerability, we are not only allowing the possibility of healing for the other person, but also for ourselves. We create an opportunity to engage with the situation, not from a place of defensiveness or fear, but from one of compassion and understanding. In that openness, we can either bridge the gap or gain the clarity needed to move forward. Vulnerability is not easy. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But it is also a choice. It's a choice to stay present, to seek understanding, and to embrace the possibility that by remaining vulnerable, we can transform our pain into connection, growth, and even healing. When we find ourselves in a situation where someone is distant or ignoring us, our first instinct is often to react immediately. We might want to send a message, confront them, or ask them what's wrong right away. These reactions come from a place of discomfort and fear, but in doing so, we risk escalating the situation or making it more about our own feelings than about understanding what's really happening. The key to navigating these moments effectively is to pause, reflect, and then respond with intention. Pausing doesn't mean ignoring the situation or pretending nothing is wrong. Instead, it's about giving yourself the space to breathe and to step back before you let your emotions take over. In moments of tension, it's easy to react impulsively, whether through anger, frustration, or even withdrawing ourselves in return. These reactions are often rooted in our own insecurities, fears, or unmet expectations, but they rarely lead to constructive outcomes. Pausing allows us to create a buffer between our initial emotional response and the action we choose to take. Reflection is a critical part of this process. After we've paused, we must take time to honestly examine our feelings. What is really bothering us? Are we feeling rejected, overlooked, or unimportant? Are we worried about the status of the relationship? It's important to recognize that these feelings are valid, but they don't necessarily reflect the full truth of the situation. The person who is distant might be dealing with something in their own life that has nothing to do with us. They may be navigating stress, exhaustion, or personal struggles that have caused them to withdraw. By taking the time to reflect on the broader context, we can shift from a place of personal hurt to one of empathy and curiosity. Reflecting also means asking yourself whether your interpretation of the situation is accurate. It's easy to make assumptions, but assumptions often lead us down paths of misunderstanding. We may assume that someone is ignoring us because they're upset with us or no longer care about the relationship, when in reality they may just be dealing with their own emotions or circumstances. Taking the time to reflect helps us question these assumptions and approach the situation from a more open and curious mindset. Once we've paused and reflected, we can then respond thoughtfully. Responding rather than reacting requires us to be intentional in our communication and actions. It might mean reaching out to the other person to express our feelings in a calm, non-accusatory way. It's important to avoid blaming or jumping to conclusions. Instead, a thoughtful response focuses on sharing your experience, being open to hearing their perspective, and creating a space for honest dialogue. This approach fosters understanding rather than adding fuel to the fire. The response might not even be to speak or act immediately. Sometimes responding means giving the other person the space they need, allowing them the time to come to terms with their own emotions. Our need for closure or an explanation shouldn't rush someone else's process. By pausing and reflecting, we allow ourselves the opportunity to listen deeply and to respond with compassion rather than defensiveness. Pausing, reflecting, and responding with intention is a process that requires patience and self-awareness. It's not always easy to slow down in the face of discomfort, but it is in those moments of pause that we can make the most meaningful choices. Instead of reacting out of fear or frustration, we can act from a place of understanding, empathy, and respect for both ourselves and the other person. This approach doesn't guarantee that everything will resolve perfectly, but it does set the foundation for healthier communication and deeper connection in the face of distance or conflict. When someone is distant or ignoring you, the natural inclination might be to shy away from confrontation or to avoid bringing up the issue altogether. We might fear that reaching out could make things worse or that we might not get the response we hope for. But the truth is, not communicating is often the most damaging thing we can do in these situations. A communication is not just about talking, it's about creating a space where both parties can share their truths, and in doing so, begin to heal and understand one another. Communicating with courage means being brave enough to face the discomfort of the unknown to express your feelings honestly and to invite the other person to do the same. It's important to recognize that courage in communication is not about being aggressive or confrontational. It's about approaching the conversation with an open heart, with the intention of understanding, not attacking. Courageous communication requires vulnerability, putting yourself out there with the risk of not knowing how the other person will respond. But without this step, we remain stuck in silence, where misunderstandings fester and feelings of isolation grow. By communicating with courage, we invite the possibility of connection, even if the path to it is uncertain. The first step in courageous communication is recognizing your own feelings and naming them. It's easy to fall into the trap of assuming what the other person feels or why they're behaving the way they are, but this often leads to judgment rather than clarity. To communicate courageously, you need to be clear about your own emotional state. Are you feeling hurt, frustrated, confused, or neglected? Naming these feelings allows you to express them with honesty and without blaming the other person. When you say, "I feel hurt when I don't hear from you," rather than "you're ignoring me," you invite understanding, not defensiveness. Once you've named your own feelings, it's important to frame your communication in a way that encourages dialogue rather than closing it off. Courageous communication means asking open-ended questions that show curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of assuming why they are distant or why they're ignoring you, ask, "I've noticed we haven't been connecting lately. Is everything okay?" Or, "I'm feeling a bit disconnected. Can we talk about what's going on?" These questions invite the other person to share their own perspective and open the door to a deeper understanding. In doing so, you give them the opportunity to express what might be going on in their life without placing blame or guilt on them. Communicating with courage doesn't mean avoiding your needs or suppressing your voice. It's important to speak your truth even if it's uncomfortable. If you need reassurance, if you need clarity, or if you need to set boundaries around how you want to be treated, courage means saying those things. 2, for example, if someone's behavior is making you feel unsafe or unappreciated, it's okay to say, "I need more consistency in our communication to feel valued in this relationship." By expressing your needs clearly and respectfully, you ensure that you are not just passively accepting a situation that is unsatisfactory to you. There's always a risk when we communicate with courage. The person on the other end may not respond the way we hope, or they may need time to process their own feelings. But even if the conversation doesn't resolve everything, speaking up creates a foundation for growth. It shows that you value the relationship enough to have the hard conversations, to explore the discomfort, and to try for understanding. In doing so, you build not only the relationship with the other person, but also the relationship you have with yourself, one where you trust your voice, express your needs, and honor your feelings without fear of judgment. Courageous communication is an act of strength, resilience, and self-respect. It's the willingness to be vulnerable in the face of uncertainty and to risk emotional exposure in pursuit of clarity and connection. While it might not always lead to an immediate resolution, it opens the door to growth, understanding, and the possibility of deeper, more meaningful relationships. When someone is distant or ignoring you, the instinctive reaction might be to either retreat into yourself or to push harder for connection. Both responses come from a place of emotional vulnerability, yet neither offers a healthy long-term solution. In these situations, setting boundaries with compassion becomes essential. It is not about shutting the other person out or demanding their attention, but about protecting your emotional well-being while also honoring their space. Boundaries are a form of self-care, and setting them with compassion allows for balance between caring for yourself and respecting the other person's needs and emotions. The first step in setting compassionate boundaries is recognizing that your emotional health is just as important as anyone else's. It's easy to get caught up in trying to make sense of the other person's behavior, wondering why they're distant or why they're ignoring you. But in doing so, we often neglect our own needs. Setting a boundary means recognizing when the relationship dynamics are causing you more pain than peace. Compassionate boundaries allow you to step back and reassess your emotional limits, what feels acceptable to you and what doesn't. These boundaries aren't about rejecting the other person, but rather about protecting your energy, your self-esteem, and your sense of peace. If someone's actions are causing you to feel neglected or hurt, it's essential to acknowledge that it's okay to want more communication, respect, or clarity. Compassionate boundaries involve expressing these needs without demanding them or expecting instant change. A boundary might look like saying, I understand you may need some space, but I need more communication to feel secure in this relationship. By expressing your need calmly and respectfully, you are advocating for your own well-being while also acknowledging that the other person's behavior may come from their own struggles. You're not labeling them as wrong, you're simply stating what you need to feel respected and valued. Setting boundaries also means knowing when to step back and give the other person the space they may need. Compassion is about understanding that distance doesn't always mean rejection. It could be that the other person is dealing with something in their own life that you may not fully understand. In these cases, a compassionate boundary might look like saying, I'm giving you the space you need right now, but I'd like to revisit this when you're ready. It's an acknowledgement that their emotional process matters, while also making it clear that your emotional needs also deserve attention and care. Boundaries are not about controlling the other person, they're about controlling what you are willing to accept. They give you the opportunity to choose how much emotional energy you invest, how much space you offer, and how much of your sense of self you're willing to compromise. Compassionate boundaries come from a place of love and respect, both for yourself and for the other person. They empower you to communicate your feelings clearly and assertively, but without anger, resentment, or demands. One of the hardest parts of setting boundaries is that it may not always be well received. The other person may not be ready to hear what you have to say, or they may resist the boundaries you set. But setting compassionate boundaries is an act of self-respect, and it's a necessary part of maintaining healthy relationships. It's about recognizing that your well-being matters too. You can love someone deeply, care for them, and want to be there for them, but you also have the right to protect yourself from emotional harm. Boundaries allow you to do both care for the relationship, but not at the cost of your own mental and emotional health. Setting boundaries with compassion allows for growth within the relationship. They show that you are willing to respect the other person's space and needs while also honoring your own. Compassionate boundaries help to foster healthier, more authentic connections built on mutual respect, understanding, and care. It's a delicate balance, but it is a vital skill for preserving your sense of self while nurturing meaningful relationships with others. When someone is distant or ignoring us, it's easy to let their behavior affect our self-worth. We may start questioning ourselves, wondering if we did something wrong or if we're somehow unworthy of their time and attention. The silence, the emotional distance, it can feel like a reflection of who we are, and that can be deeply painful. But it's essential to recognize that our self-worth is not tied to the actions or inactions of others. Focusing on your self-worth during times like these is crucial, as it allows you to maintain your confidence, sense of value, and emotional well-being, regardless of how others behave. Our self-worth is something internal, something we must cultivate within ourselves. It's not determined by external validation or by the way others treat us. While it's natural to seek affirmation from others, it's vital to remember that your worth isn't contingent on someone else's approval, attention, or acknowledgement. When someone pulls away, their actions may reflect their own struggles, insecurities, or limitations, but it has nothing to do with your inherent value. People's behavior is often more about them than it is about us. it's important not to internalize their actions, as doing so can lead to unnecessary self-doubt and diminished self-esteem. Focusing on your self-worth means reconnecting with your own sense of value and strength. Take the time to remind yourself of who you are, apart from anyone else's opinions or behavior. Reflect on your qualities, your achievements, and the things that make you unique. Write down the things you love about yourself and the things you've accomplished. These reminders serve as an anchor when we feel the impact of someone else's distance. You are more than their reaction to you. You are worthy of love, respect, and kindness regardless of how others treat you. It's also important to practice self-compassion. Often, when we're hurt, we become our own harshest critics. We might tell ourselves that we're not good enough or that we've done something wrong. But self-worth is rooted in self-acceptance, and that means being gentle with yourself. Understand that it's okay to feel hurt, it's okay to feel confused or upset, but don't let those emotions define you. Allow yourself the grace to feel without attaching negative self-judgments to those feelings. You are human, and it's natural to seek connection, but your worth is not determined by how others respond. As you focus on your self-worth, it's also an opportunity to grow and deepen your relationship with yourself. Engage in activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul. Spend time doing things that make you feel good about who you are, whether that's through hobbies, self-care routines, or moments of reflection. Strengthening your sense of self can help you remain grounded and centered, even when external circumstances feel uncertain or unstable. Focusing on your self-worth allows you to set healthier boundaries and make better decisions about who you invest your emotional energy in. When you know your worth, you're less likely to tolerate behavior that doesn't honor you. You become more attuned to your needs and better able to communicate them in a way that protects your well-being. You understand that relationships should be reciprocal, and if someone consistently disregards you, it's not a reflection of your worth, but rather an indication of where they are emotionally. Maintaining focus on your self-worth means recognizing that you are deserving of respect, kindness, and love, whether from others or yourself. It's a reminder that you don't need to earn your worth, it is intrinsic. By nurturing and protecting that internal sense of value, you are better equipped to handle the emotional challenges that come with someone's distance. Your sense of self is not for sale, nor can it be diminished by the actions of others. When you focus on your self-worth, you become resilient, capable of facing difficult situations with grace and strength, knowing that no matter what happens, your worth remains constant and unshakable. When someone is distant or ignoring us, it's natural to feel hurt, confused, or even angry. In these moments, it's easy to slip into judgment, assuming the worst about the person and the situation. We might wonder, what did I do wrong? Or why are they treating me this way? These judgments are often rooted in our own feelings of rejection or fear of being abandoned. However, choosing to stay curious rather than judgmental in these situations can transform how we experience the discomfort and ultimately lead to greater understanding and growth. Curiosity opens the door to empathy, while judgment closes it. When we approach a person's distance with curiosity, we are willing to step out of our own emotional reactions and try to understand what's really going on. Instead of assuming that their behavior is a direct reflection of how they feel about us, curiosity invites us to consider the larger context. Maybe they are going through something personal that has nothing to do with us. Maybe they are struggling with emotions or situations that we don't fully understand. By choosing curiosity, we acknowledge that there is more to the story than what meets the eye. Being curious also allows us to release the need to control or fix the situation. Often when we're faced with someone's distance, we feel an urge to make it better, to solve the problem quickly, so we can return to the comfort of connection. But staying curious means being willing to sit with the discomfort and uncertainty for a while. Instead of rushing to conclusions, we ask open-ended questions, both of ourselves and the other person. We ask, what might they be going through? Is there something they need that I haven't yet understood? And how can I support them in a way that respects their boundaries and feelings? Curiosity helps us approach the situation without attachment to a specific outcome. When we judge someone for their behavior, we typically create a narrative in our minds that may or may not be true. We start to tell ourselves stories that might be inaccurate, unhelpful, or self-serving. They don't care about me, they've decided I'm not important, or they're purposely shutting me out. These stories shape how we respond, often leading to defensiveness, frustration, or withdrawal. But curiosity asks us to suspend these judgments and approach the situation with an open mind. We don't know exactly what's going on, and that uncertainty is okay. Curiosity helps us stay grounded in the present moment, rather than getting caught up in the negative narratives that our minds may create. In staying curious, we also create space for open and honest communication. When we judge others, our responses often become laced with assumptions and blame. It's easy to say things like, "You're ignoring me and that's not fair," or "You don't care about our relationship anymore." These statements tend to provoke defensiveness rather than invite understanding. However, curiosity leads to questions that foster connection. "I've noticed you've been distant lately. Is everything okay?" Or, "I'm feeling a little disconnected and I just want to understand what's going on." These types of questions open the door for the other person to share their feelings and experiences in a way that's non-confrontational and empathetic, rather than judgmental. Also helps protect our own emotional health. When we make judgments about others, we often find ourselves feeling powerless or out of control. We spiral into negative self-talk, wondering if we're to blame or if we're just not good enough. But curiosity puts the focus on the other person's experience, not our own fears or insecurities. It shifts our mindset from a place of worry and self-doubt to one of understanding and patience. In doing so, we allow ourselves the freedom to let go of negative assumptions, giving the other person room to be human and to have their own struggles. Curiosity is about embracing the unknown and being open to learning from the situation, rather than jumping to conclusions. When we approach moments of distance with curiosity, we open the door to deeper understanding, healthier communication, and a greater sense of emotional resilience. We recognize that no relationship is static, and that both people may be facing challenges that affect how they connect with one another. By staying curious, we honor both ourselves and the other person, allowing for growth, healing, and connection, even when the path forward isn't immediately clear. There are times in life when we find ourselves clinging to relationships or situations that no longer serve us. This is particularly true when someone we care about becomes distant or starts ignoring us. We may try to hold on, hoping for change, for a return to the way things once were, or for some sort of resolution. However, there are moments when letting go is not only the healthiest option, but also the most empowering one. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means recognizing when a situation is no longer contributing to our growth, happiness, or well-being, and making the choice to release it for the sake of our emotional and mental health. Letting go is often difficult because it requires us to confront feelings of loss and uncertainty. We may fear that we are losing a connection or that we will never experience the same kind of bond again. This fear can cause us to cling harder, to try to force something to work, even when the signs indicate that it's time to move on. Yet, the more we hold on to something that isn't right for us, the more we risk our own emotional energy and peace. Letting go is a conscious choice to stop holding on to what is no longer aligned with our values, needs, or emotional health. It's a courageous decision to prioritize ourselves over the fear of loss. One of the reasons it's so difficult to let go is because we often define our worth and happiness through others, whether it's through relationships, validation, or the approval of others. We might tie our sense of self to how we're treated by the people around us, thinking that their actions are a reflection of who we are. When someone becomes distant or ignores us, it's easy to internalize that behavior and feel as though we are unworthy or undeserving of connection. However, letting go means recognizing that our worth is not tied to another person's actions. It's an invitation to separate ourselves from the behavior of others and reconnect with our own intrinsic value. Letting go also requires a certain level of acceptance. It means accepting that we cannot control how other people feel, behave, or respond. Relationships, especially close ones, are a dynamic exchange of energies, and sometimes despite our best efforts, they change. People grow apart, priorities shift, or circumstances outside our control affect how someone interacts with us. Letting go doesn't mean that we are giving up on the person or the relationship. It simply means acknowledging that, for now, the relationship is not in a healthy or fulfilling place, and that it's okay to step away. This acceptance can bring peace, as it frees us from the constant emotional tug of war between hope and hurt. Letting go may also involve setting boundaries or making the decision that the other person's behavior is no longer something we are willing to tolerate. If someone's distance is causing us pain or emotional harm, letting go means recognizing that we deserve to protect ourselves from that negativity. Letting go can look like emotionally detaching from someone, creating space between you and them, or even deciding that the relationship no longer fits with where you are in your life. It may not always be an immediate or drastic change, but it's about making the decision to stop pouring energy into something that is no longer serving you in a positive way. While letting go can bring initial feelings of sadness or grief, it is ultimately a powerful act of self-preservation and personal growth. It opens the door for new opportunities, new connections, and the chance to rediscover who we are outside of the relationship or situation. Letting go makes space for healing, for focusing on our own needs, and for building a life that is based on healthy reciprocal relationships. It allows us to free up emotional energy that was once consumed by holding on to something that wasn't nourishing us, and instead channel that energy into the things that truly bring us joy, fulfillment, and peace. Letting go is a practice of trust. It's trusting that the universe has a way of guiding us, that we will be okay even if things don't turn out the way we expected, and that sometimes what we let go of is actually making room for something better. The process of releasing can be liberating, and it reminds us that we are in control of our own well-being. Letting go is not about giving up, it's about choosing ourselves and recognizing that we are worthy of love, respect, and fulfillment, no matter what others may or may not give us.